Hello, how's it going, all of you beautiful people around the world? My name is Ryan, aka Blackbeard TCG. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day, and if not, hopefully I can make it a little bit better. Now look, in today's video, we're going to be talking about Kuro of the Black Cat Pirates. Now, Kuro is a very interesting leader, and by the way, obviously you see on the screen, there's a deck list for any of you yoinkers. If you are gonna yoink it, at least type yoinked in the comment section so I know that like I get some interaction, right? Just hook me up, man. Help a boy out. Go ahead and do that for me. But we want to talk about Kuro because I feel that he's actually going to be pretty decent in this current meta. It depends on what version of Zoro really gets adapted by the community. If there's a lot more of the Fire Fist version of Zoro, it could be a little bit painful. But if not, if people are playing a lot more of the Rush Zoro package that we've, well, not really Rush, but Beat Down Zoro package rather, that we've been seeing, that has been topping events recently, I think that this Kuro actually stands a pretty good chance. His roughest matchups are going to be against Ace and Yellow. Black is a little bit 50-50, specifically with Rob Lucci. But with that being said, if we are going up against Zoros mainly, and even Laws, I think that Kuro is potentially a really, really good choice. Now, why Kuro, right? Well, what is his ability? You can rest 3 Don as well as 2 of your characters with the East Blue type. Then you can restand him and rest one of your opponent's 5 cost or less characters. Why is this good? Well, you can rest things like 5 cost Law or any other blocker that your opponent has after a restand and swing with him again. But as you would notice very closely, it is not once per turn. So you can use Kuro's ability twice potentially if needed to close out games. You kind of utilize him how you would a Rob Lucci, and you play really aggressively by putting a lot of small bodies on board, resting your opponent's characters to try to control the board, and then chip away with them with things like Don Krieg and Django and close out the game with your Kuro and Pirate King. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this list. This deck is so much fun, and after I talk about the list, I'm going to be very, very curious to see what you guys say in the comment section below to see if you guys have been playing Kuro and what your builds differ from mine, and we'll talk about some of the other cards that you could play in this build. So let's just run over the cards real quick. I don't want to take too much of your time. So we have 2 copies of Nami, which is going to be your searcher. Don't really need to explain that too much. East Blue, it's going to be able to search anything in your deck, or almost anything in your deck rather. And you can play her off trigger, which is nice. Pearl, who is also East Blue, going to be your standard blocker. Just self-explanatory. We have 4 copies of Alvida. 1 costs 3,000 power. Of course, it's not the greatest stat line in the world, but Alvida has strike attribute. What does that mean? That means that Alvida can swing into Buggy. Yes, that is actually pretty valuable. Obviously, being 1 cost, it's going to be a body that you can easily spam onto the board, which makes Kuro's ability more active. 4 copies of Izo, which is a 2k counter. That's why I said 2 earlier. You want 4 copies of this because it's going to be good on defense, but obviously as well, if you need to rest something, you know, maybe they got that cheeky 1 of 4 cost Marco on board that's a blocker, you can go ahead and drop that Izo and rest it, right? So there's versatility there. 4 copies of Momu for same reason as Alvida. Again, has strike, 4,000 power, so really good for getting rid of those annoying bodies that are on the board in Zoro. But more importantly, again, it's 2 costs, which means it's easy fodder for Kuro. Next couple cards are interesting. Sham we'll get back to in a little bit, but let's talk about Hachan. You're going to run 4 copies of that because it's your standard 2k counter. You could also play it off of trigger as well, which is interesting, right? Obviously, if you're more on the defensive end, you're going to want to keep it in your hand. If it's really early game, you'll probably want to keep it in your hand because it's a 2k counter. But if it's in the late game and you're setting up for lethal and it gets hit, go ahead and play it on the board because now you have another character that you could potentially rest for your Kuro, right? 2 copies of Buggy, 3 cost 5,000 power. Only running 2 copies of this because it has no counter, but its ability is, I mean, it's a Buggy ability, which means this character cannot be KO'd with slash attribute cards, which means that it can't be KO'd by a ton of stuff in Law. So it's really nice to have if you are going up against Law. You can use him to attack it to your opponent. It sticks on the board, and then you can go ahead and rest him for your Kuro ability. Now, here's where the deck gets really interesting. The cards you kind of want to play in the mid to late game. 4 copies of Geen. So on play, you can rest 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Again, very good for the board control. And then now we have to talk about Butchie or Bucci. I don't care how you guys want to pronounce it. Make fun of me if you want. I'm going to call him Butchie. You have 4 copies of Butchie, and then if we go back, 4 copies of Sham. So you use this as a combo. You play your Sham for 3 Dawn, who is 3 cost 4,000 power. Sham will then rest 1 character with a cost of 2 or less on your opponent's board. So almost everything in Zoro that isn't 5-cost Marco or Rush Zoro, or some people are running the Rush Luffy's as well. You can hit all of those other babies. So you could do that with Sham. Sham plays Butchie for free, which is a 4-cost 5,000 power body. Get that on the board, and then you can instantly KO one of those rested 2-cost units. So you develop two cards on the board and pop one of your opponents. So that is really good. 4 copies of Django, because Django allows you to restand Kuro. Kuro can already restand himself, and now you have Django with the ability to restand. So it's really spicy. I really love playing this card. And then on top of that, on the next turn, it's 6,000 power. So with 1 Don attached, 7,000 power. It's just a great 5-drop to have in your deck. Obviously, East Blue as well. And then we got to talk about Don Krieg. 6-cost, 7,000 power. He has double attack with 1 Don attached, which you actually end up hitting more often than not, as you would think. Obviously, there's a bunch of blockers that you can potentially deal with in this game. But all the chump blockers, you have ways to rest them potentially. Whether it's Geen, whether it's Sham, whether it's any of those cards. Maybe Izo if you have to. But remember, your leader can also rest cards, and again, if you have to go up against Law, Kuro can rest 5-cost Law and open up the way for Don Krieg. Also on play, Don Krieg can go ahead and KO 2 rested 4-cost units, so that's extremely helpful, again, going up against Zoro. And so it's really nice when you're going up against Law by attaching 1 Don to Kuro, making him 6,000 power, attacking to your leader, and seeing what they do, right? Are they going to block with their Trafalgar Law? If they do, great. Now your Don Krieg is on board, and you can load him up for a double swing. And then also potentially restand your Kuro, attach Don, and then swing again, right? And by doing that, you can now rest that Trafalgar Law if they didn't already block with him. So you're kind of putting them in a deadlock. They got to have 2 5-cost Trafalgar Laws on the board for you to really kind of be sussed by that. And then now, my favorite card in the deck, one of the most underrated cards, is Pirate King. I will become Pirate King. People don't know what this card does, and that's part of what makes it amazing, because people don't even think of the idea of this being played. A lot of people that run this deck actually opt to run Punk Gibson, which in my opinion I don't like, because I like to play a little bit more aggressive, and that's what Pirate King does. It gives your leader an extra 1,000 power during this turn for each of your characters. So on average, you're probably going to get ideally 4,000 to 5,000 extra power when you play Pirate King. This is absolutely absurd. If you can get 5,000 power, heck, even if you can get 4,000 power for the cost of 2 Dawn on your turn, potentially on Kuro that can swing twice and close out the game, and you can still continue to attach Dawn onto him, it's absolutely amazing. With between Kuro, Krieg having double attack, and Pirate King, it is very, very easy for you to surprisingly take games off your opponent. So this is the full build. It's super fun to play. I'm super curious. Let me know in the comment section below. Have you played with a build similar? Have you guys played Kuro? What do you think about my build, and what would you change? Real quick, I just want to talk about some cards that you could potentially run in Kuro as well. Let's go ahead and search up green. Of course, you can play Punk Gibson. I already talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm not a fan of it personally. Obviously, if you do decide to play it, there's no problem. It's a great card. I think it is good. If you do want to play, you could go ahead and rest something that's 4 costs or less. On the defensive end, it bumps you up to 9k. Resting something can protect you from 1 attack. So this alone can help you get that extra turn to allow you to win. And so maybe I will ultimately, with more testing, find some space for this. The deck list is just so tight. And so if I was to play Punk Gibson, you know, maybe I would have to say would I play over Pirate King, right? It just comes down to I want to be more offensive or defensive. Outside of that, I don't really know what else I would drop in order to make room for it. But again, if you make room for it in your own build, or if you've been playing it and you've been having success, hey man, all the more power to you. I think it's a good card. What else is there? There's the other East Blue cards in green that you can run as well, right? I personally don't like them at all, so I run 0 copies. That's going to be Karubi as well as Chu. These stat lines are just absolutely terrible. 4 cost, 3,000 power, absolutely garble. I never want to play these. It just feels terrible playing these. They're instantly going to be fodder for Kuro, which is fine, but at least the other cards that I use for fodder with Kuro, if I need to swing with them, it's a lot more cheaper in order to swing them. Of course, you could argue that Chu and Kurobi would hopefully allow you to get a little bit more board control, but more often than not, in my opinion, I found it to be more of a hindrance than a boon. So that's just me. I would much rather drop Chu as well as Kurobi and play things like Momu and Alvida and be able to spam the board more, or be able to play Sham and Butchie, and this combo actually comes up pretty often, and be able to develop 2 bodies, KO 1, and just be able to play like that. So again, that's just my preference. If you do want to play these, you can. I personally don't recommend it. Those are the ones off the top of my head. I can't really think of anything else in OPO3 that we have right now that you can run. Maybe you can run Okiku if you want, being able to rest blockers as well. But again, what would I substitute? Maybe if I do want to play Okiku, I would drop the buggies. I would drop 2 copy of Buggy and put 2 Okikus in. But then again, you miss out on 2 potential East Blue Pirates cards. And sure, Okiku can rest the 5-cost Law, but then Buggy can kind of stick on board going up against Law as well. So that's another potential option. There's a lot of things that you guys could do. If you want to play more blockers, you could play things like Capone Gang Beige, which is actually pretty decent because he can be used as a decoy, right? There's going to be things like Sea Quakes, Vistas, Fire Fist, all of those things in the meta. And so a lot of the times people are going to want to get rid of your blockers to go for lethal. And so if they use resources on your Capone Gang Beige instead, then it's actually better because you'd rather them use it on that than a thing like a Alvida or a Pearl or Nami, for example, right? Because they're East Blue when you want to have those fodders for your Kuro. So with all of that being said, my friends, try out Kuro. Let me know what you think. This deck is super cheap to build if you want to build it in real life as well. In fact, I think I'm going to be picking it up in real life because I've been having so much fun on the sim and it's absolutely dirt cheap. I would say, honestly, I haven't even looked at the price. I don't even know how expensive Pirate King is, but I would assume Pirate King is also pretty cheap because, again, a lot of people don't use it. And I have like so many of these from all the promo packs when the game first came out. But outside of that, I can't see anything on this list being extremely expensive. So pick it up. I would recommend it. With that being said, I hope you guys all have an amazing day. Peace.